Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Small Screen Star Wars. As always, I'm Julian Musha. I'm joined by Rachel Wilkinson.
Hello, good to be back.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. We've
A
been a
little
little bit
bit.
on a little bit of a hiatus,
Mm-hmm.
but that's because there really hasn't been much to talk about.
That's true.
There is one news story we'll get to before we jump into things. And what are we doing today? That's the question that's on the
Uh-huh.
top of everyone's mind. We're going to be talking about Star Wars Visions, the new anime anthology that dropped on Disney Plus. Was it last week or the week before? I think late the week before.
Yeah, I think so. We're a little late to the game, but that's okay.
That's fine. I mean, there's so many episodes. It's going to take you days to finish it.
Yeah. Days and days.
Days and days and days. So that's the plan for today. Before we get into that, I'll just remind everyone, if you do like the show, it makes a huge difference to us if you can like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff on your podcast player of choice. And if you want to help support the show in a more financial manner, you can head over to patreon.com/TowerBabbleCast, and you'll be able to, for as little as $5 a month, get access to a monthly film club that we do. Rachel was supposed to be on this month for the 1998 film Snake Eyes, but she wasn't able to join us.
No, sorry.
But she was on last month when we did another Nicolas Cage movie, Face Off. So if you want to hear that and much, much more, please head over to Patreon and subscribe there to help support the show. Next month, we're doing another 90s movie. We're continuing the 90s movie trend, and we're going to be doing the Catherine Bigelow film Point Break.
Oh,
So,
I love Point Break.
I've never seen it, so it's going to be very exciting.
What?
Yeah.
I think I yelled at you about this before.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Yeah.
The proto Fast and
okay.
Furious film. So you can, like I said, subscribe to the show, and you'll be able to listen while we while Rachel makes fun of me for not having seen it earlier.
Yeah, I will definitely be on that one. I can lend you my copy.
You have it on Blu-ray?
I don't know, DVD probably regular from the 90s.
Listen, I only watch things in HD or 4K now.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, so people are probably wondering, what's this news story I was talking about? Well, the news story is we got a new poster for the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
And a release date. And I'm just pulling it up here now so I can find it. I think that was actually today. Might have been yesterday.
Oh, yeah, I saw it's
December 29th on Disney Plus. And it's a pretty cool poster. It has Boba Fett sitting on that throne in Jabba's palace. And what's surprising to me is his armor looks beat up again.
Yeah.
Even though, we had just seen him refurbish it all, and now it's all scratched up again. So I think that's interesting. I think they looked at the design and said, yeah, this is cool for a couple episodes, but I think people like a more beat up version of the armor. So
I think so too. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That's the only takeaway I had there. We're also, by the way, record this live, so we're on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. Periscope used to exist. Now it is just the Twitter Live or whatever it's called. And we have Marcos, friend of the show. Marcos is in the chat. He's asking me. I'll listen to the full thing, but funny enough, I was debating of watching this tonight. Is it worth it? Absolutely. So let's get into this and dive into this whole thing. And I have it playing behind me. If you're watching live, you can kind of see some of the visual stylings. But in my opinion, and I think I kind of went into it with an expectation that it was going to be Japanese stories told with a Star Wars trappings.
Right.
But I think it's actually the opposite. I think it's Star Wars stories told with Japanese trappings, which I think is really, really cool. I don't know which one's better or worse.
Ooh, I have a list.
But there is, and we'll get into which ones we think are the best.
Yeah.
But I just mean compared to those two different methodologies. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer there. I will say I was surprised by how faithful to the Star Wars world these stories were in most cases. I guess I would say I'm a lapsed anime fan. I used to watch Dragon Ball back in the day, and I used to watch Yu-Gi-Oh, and I watched Dragon Ball, and obviously Pokemon.
Right.
I said Dragon Ball already. Digimon is what I was wanting to say.
Okay.
So there's been a lot of different influences, and I haven't really seen a lot of the major anime films like Ghost in the Shell, one of the studios behind some of these, or at least one of these shorts, is actually the same studio who did Ghost in the Shell, which is a seminal work. And there's in Trigger, which is another studio that's been involved in these, done a lot of like classic anime work. But I just haven't seen enough, and there's a part of anime that turns me off a little bit, and a part of that is just how on the nose it is sometimes, and it's in this too. There's this.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of like, the lightsaber is red. It's like, yeah, no shit, we see that. Like,
Oh,
you don't need
yes,
to say
yes.
that out loud.
I
You
know
what
exactly what you're saying, and I
So
kind of the dialogue is a little. I get what you mean.
It's stilted, but intentionally so. It's like it's stylistic in that way. So
okay, I was curious if that is a like there's a translation reason
Yeah,
behind that,
well,
because I'm
yeah.
assuming that they created these in Japanese first.
100%. So these are
Okay.
all Japanese first,
Yes.
and then they're dubbed in English.
So I feel like some things might not have like the way it's said in Japanese is probably a
Yes.
little bit different, but it wouldn't translate right. So they kind of have to make it a little bit more
100%.
yeah. So it's a
But-
little more on the nose, but yeah.
So it's like an artifact of the localization, but I think more so than that, it's intentionally built into the way the dialogue is said, and
Yeah.
maybe that's part of the way that, and I don't fully understand, the phraseology of Japanese conversation. That maybe it is a little bit more, straightforward on the nose. But I think my understanding is, and again, I'm not an expert on this, but my understanding is that it's more intentionally done like that in anime to really drive home points that
Probably.
they want to drive stuff home, and it's not. We're not used to it in the Western world because we like to. There's a lot more of this kind of like show don't tell type of thinking in storytelling. It's like you don't need to tell someone something's red if it's red, right?
Right.
Once it's a
Yes,
black and
yes.
white movie, I suppose. So that kind of stuff is rubs me the wrong way. But overall, I think that it just looks super cool. So all these have super distinct visual styles.
Right. Yeah.
Specifically, I think the first one, which is the duel.
Yes.
Is so cool. Like
It
I just
is.
like
It is.
and you just you have to give props to this kind of like black and white, like film grain style that they go for here with just these little bits of color. And I guess we'll just go by episode to episode, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, yeah, when it comes down to like Marcos's question, like I do think it's totally worth watching. Like they're not very long. You can get through most of them in probably a night. So I think it's definitely worth, I don't know, like at least tuning into to watch them.
Yeah, that's the other thing. So my understanding was that it was originally going to be a film. Like they were going to stitch these all together as one big thing, and you're going to sit down and watch them all. But they decided to split it up into this kind of individual episode. I think they still built it in a certain way. Like you start with one and you go through to the end, and they all have. There's a through line a little bit. Some of the people have talked about that. I didn't really feel that necessarily. I think you can really watch them in any order. But I would say starting with the duel is a good place to start because it's just so cool.
It started off real strong with that one. Almost too strong, but it was really good.
Yeah, that's true. And it plays homage to the roots of Star Wars. So there is a lot of Asian influence, Eastern influence, Japanese specifically, on George Lucas when he was making Star Wars for the first time. There's a bunch of behind the scenes little featurettes that go along with this, which I think is great. You should watch all those. And that's what I was watching before we started recording here. But one of the creators mentioned that like when he was growing up, because he was growing up in Japan and Star Wars is still quite popular there. He was able to very easily see the Eastern influences. Like this is where they borrowed from Japan, right?
Right.
And he wanted to be able to kind of flip that on the head and say, okay, well, now that I am creating this stuff, I can take it back to the roots and kind of reverse it and say, take the American, the Western parts and kind of Asianize them, right? And make them feel more part of like Japanese culture. Almost a flip. And I think that totally applies to the whole anthology. Because again, like there always has been like the idea of obviously Jedi are very much like samurai, right?
Yes,
and
of course.
The Force is very much like Buddhism, not obviously like one-to-one, but there's elements there that are similar. And they talk about that in those featurettes as well. And they're just like, and then obviously the styling of like, the Darth Vader's helmet.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Like these are things that are, I think, if you weren't aware, now you might be, that these are Japanese influenced like stylings. So it seems almost appropriate. It's crazy that it's taken this long that we've got that to get to this point where we have a a fully Japanese made Star Wars story. And it does make me think of. Do you remember that anime TIE Fighter video that was going around YouTube? It's been on YouTube for probably 20 years.
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen it.
Very cool. It was one of the first kind of like fan made things I've ever seen.
Oh,
It's like
okay.
anime style, with a TIE Fighter pilot, kind of like taking out X-wings and stuff. It's super detailed and cool. And they basically just took that idea and said, well, what if we did that with all things here? That being said, a lot of these stories, I think, are fairly similar. I wish there was more variety in the stories. They're kind of, a lot of them revolve around Jedi and light side, dark side stuff, and that's fine because that's very core to Star Wars. But because none of these studios were like working together and said like, oh, I'll do this story and you do this story, you end up with a lot of similar kind of themes.
Okay.
I would have loved to seen like we don't really get to see any space combat really.
No, that's true.
There's not really like a bounty hunter story or like a smuggler story. It's just kind of like all Jedi or Sith. And there's a lot of, I've noticed this as well. There's a lot of characters that you think are Jedi turn out are actually Sith. Like more often than you would think. Like it's like that's weird that keeps popping up as like a theme, but it does. So anyway, that's a long answer to your question, Marcos. But yeah, absolutely, 100%, 100% worth watching. I think it's, in my opinion, it's I would say it's required reading for like a really hardcore Star Wars fan. If you're not kind of paying homage to the Japanese roots. I have been meaning to go back, and by go back I mean watch them for the first time. But go back in time because Kurosawa films are old. I've been meaning to go and watch them. Things like Yojimbo and Seven Samurai, because they are people always constantly point to those films as being like major inspirations for George Lucas. I'm like, that's awesome. I'm like that. I must be into it then. I'll probably like it. But I just haven't had a chance to go and kind of see some of those things. So this kind of gets me close. I still need to do it, obviously, but yeah. I mean, where we want to begin. Let's start with, I guess, the duel.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find here on IMDb if it has the studio names, and it doesn't seem to be easily visible. But we'll start here, and I'll just quickly recap the story, and then we can kind of talk about some of our favorite moments and whatnot.
Yeah, sure.
But I love the design of this short.
Yeah, me too.
It's black and white with elements of color, which is always, I think, a really fun kind of blending of old and new,
yes.
By the way, also, which is really cool, is that they actually do a lot of this episode is done in like a 3D animation, but it's designed to look like it's 2D animated.
Okay.
Which is I think very cool as well. There's like a really cool blending of that, and they add this kind of these textured effects to kind of make it look like it's hand drawn.
Yeah,
really
make it look like really old, but
yeah. So anyway, this idea is this kind of this Yojimbo style story where you have this kind of like Ronin-esque character, this like wandering Jedi, and his like R2D2 style, astromech droid, and
he was so cute with his little hat.
Oh, I know. And then they have this group of bandits come in, and they're kind of attacking this village, and they're kind of defending themselves. But then it turns out there's like this Sith warrior woman who's just wrecking shop. So this samurai type character, he kind of joins the fight to defend the town and defeat the Sith, and it's really cool. But the big surprise in this short, which again becomes less surprising the more it's done throughout these shorts, is that he's not actually a Jedi at all. And I think the line is, "Unfortunately, I'm not a Jedi," because there's this cool line where she's like, "I haven't killed a Jedi in a long time."
Yeah.
And he pulls his lightsaber in this very dramatic fashion. And by the way, another thing that keeps happening in these shorts is that all these lightsabers for some reason have hilts.
Oh yeah.
So they can put their lightsaber
cool,
away. It does look very cool.
It looks very cool because
that.
it's very the samurai sword, right?
Yes,
or like a katana.
totally.
Like it looks so cool. Like, I don't know. I just loved that part.
Oh, that's the other thing too, because like how Ahsoka's lightsabers are
Yeah.
very much inspired by
Her hilts are basically, what do you call them? They have like the katana sort of
like
like
those like crisscrossy
little
like
diamonds on the
yeah
same. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's always amazing when you can have a lightsaber that's also a samurai sword.
Yeah.
That like
So
in this
cool.
traditional sense, it's very cool. So I liked it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the few of these that really felt like a fully fledged story and less of kind of like just a pitch,
Right.
right?
This one
Um,
I wanted more of. Like when I was watching, I'm like, man, like I just want to keep watching this story. Like, I
mhm.
want to know more about it. I want to see more of this character. Like I thought it was such a cool story.
Yeah, he's collecting kyber crystals.
Yeah.
Like, so like, what's the deal there? Like, it seems like maybe, he's like a disillusioned Sith, or like he kind of is like lost.
And
Go
see, I
ahead.
was curious about that. It's like, is he a Sith or did he just like kill a Sith and that's why his lightsaber's red? You know what I mean? I was
Well, yeah, I
curious if
guess
maybe, I mean, he could have, and he's just a Sith and now he's hunting other ones. But are you really a Sith if you're killing? I
that's what
guess,
I mean. I
yeah, they do
guess
kill each other all the time. So,
in name only, I suppose. But I guess like
yeah.
in my like my reading of it was that he was a student of the dark side, but then has
Right.
kind of lost his. He kind of like doesn't believe in that anymore, and is
Yes.
trying to
Yeah.
like repay his debts by
Mm-hmm.
taking out these other dark side
Evil.
users,
Yeah. That makes
right?
sense, actually. Yeah. So it's like,
And that
okay, I get it how he can't call himself a Jedi, but he's not a Sith. So he's kind of in the middle.
right. So that's cool, like this gray Jedi idea, but he's got a red lightsaber. I think there's this kind of just fascination with red lightsabers just generally, that they just look
Yes.
very cool. And they do.
Yes.
That's
They
fair.
do. They do.
That's fair. So I think that's a part of it. There's this really cool moment where they fight on a log going down the
Mhm.
river. And one of the things that really surprised me, by the way, too, in this short was that because it was the first one, I was like interesting how they were going to interpret some of the Star Wars like traditional things like the sound of a lightsaber, but they
Yeah.
do no changes to those things at all. It's exactly when a lightsaber ignites, it's the sound of a lightsaber that we've heard since 1977.
Yes.
So I thought that's a kind of a cool touch. And then anyway, so they fight on this log, and one of the things they reference in the kind of the featurette, behind the scenes featurette, is that they wanted to pay homage to Episode 3, where it's Obi-Wan and Anakin fighting on that
okay.
river, the lava
Yeah.
river.
Gotcha.
So that they wanted to do that, and then there's another homage to Episode 1 in that scene where she's like looking through the waterfall and kind of like slashes it with her lightsaber,
Mm-hmm.
and it like creates steam. It's supposed to pay homage to Maul like hitting the red barrier when he's like super impatient in Episode
Oh,
1.
okay.
So I thought that was kind of cool. These kind of like little bits and pieces that
Little
I
bits,
maybe
yeah.
didn't pick up on when I was watching it.
Yeah. I also really liked her parasol with all the sabers coming out at the end of it. I thought that was so neat. Like we see a lot of cool new sort of things to do with lightsabers, but that was such a perfect mix of Star Wars lightsabers, but like quirky kind of cool Japanese
Right.
element. It was just, I loved it. I was like, that's so badass looking. I'm very into it. I want one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with the parasol things got made fun of a lot.
What? I thought it was so cool. I'm like,
It got
yeah.
made fun of a lot. And
I don't care. Well, they're
before,
wrong.
I mean, before the like when it was in the trailer, people were making fun of it.
Oh,
But
okay.
what I liked about it was that it was like a accessory to her lightsaber.
I know.
It was like an
It wasn't-
add-on piece.
Yeah, it wasn't just her full lightsaber. It was just a parasol. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. But she could take hers out, and then it's
right.
I don't know. I just thought it was.
It's
To
creative.
me, I
Yeah.
like those kind of weird things in Star Wars.
You like
I'm
it when
oh.
you like it when the Inquisitors are like flying on their.
I
little-
never
on
had
their
an issue with
lightsabers.
that. Like it's
It's
definitely
so
kind of
silly.
goofy, and I was like,
so goofy.
but the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, I guess. Like, that's, yeah, but
I'll
no,
allow
I
it.
thought it was neat because like a parasol traditionally is so like delicate and fancy, and it's just to like
Right.
protect you from the sun. It can't even protect you from rain. Like they're just very, high class,
Right.
you know,
Yep. Totally.
pretty. And it's like, no, this one will murder you. So I liked it.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Anything else out of this short stand out to you?
No, not really. I was gonna say I also did like the it was almost like a probe droid, but it was being driven by a what's he's called? From episode 1, Sebulba, like one of those guys, and it had all the knives on it. But it was like
Yes.
little like
Yes.
lightsaber knives.
Yes, that's pretty cool actually too.
I
I
thought
remember
that thing
thinking
was
it
cool.
bursts out of a wall and I'm like that
Yeah.
thing looks deadly.
I know. I
There's
was like,
actually
I was like, that thing's dope looking.
there
It's cool.
there is these like I guess there's these kind of like protectors of the village, and you have like a Bosk type character there, and you
Yeah.
have like a um uh what the heck what's the word I'm looking for? Tatooine. They have
Oh,
the
the
slug
Tuscan
throwers. Tuscan Raider
Tuscan
is one of
Raiders. Yeah.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you have like an IG droid,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like
There's
it's just really cool. And then the other thing that jumps out at me that I really liked was the design of the troopers. These kind of like wearing these kind of like
yeah, because it was
half
almost
old
like
armor, new
everything.
armor. Yeah,
Yeah, everything has kind of fallen apart a little bit, so they've got like pieced together, sort of
yeah.
like making their own masks out of the stormtrooper masks. I thought that was cool too. No,
So one of the
this was a top notch episode.
yeah, totally. And one of the other things I really liked overall about all of them is trying to like decipher when in the Star Wars universe they're supposed to be set, because ultimately
Yes.
most of them have a take on when they're set. Not all of them necessarily reveal that, but this one seems to be set post episode 9. Post episode 9, it seems like.
Yeah, I think so.
When the First Order's kind of fallen apart, and then these are people kind of like filling in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not clear. Like it could be really anywhere in the new era, kind of the sequel trilogy era. So I don't know. I just like trying to like decipher that. And obviously, when you go to the next episode, which is Tatooine Rhapsody,
Yeah.
you get a very obvious like this is set at a very specific time,
Yes.
right, in the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just I didn't like this episode at first. Okay.
Yeah.
But but it did grow, and like in thinking about it more, it did grow on me. Part of that is because it has like characters we know, right? You have Boba Fett voiced by Tamora Morrison in here, and I think that's really cool. And then you have Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's like the main voice actor here, the lead character. You have Bobby Moynihan, who's playing Geezer, that kind of the Hutt who doesn't want to go back.
Yeah.
And so you just got like, I just think it's like it's a really solid voice cast. And although I maybe don't love kind of the more like a less serious take on Star Wars in this case, it certainly looks really cool. I think it has a very distinct visual style to it.
I'll give it that. Yeah.
And I like the idea that you're gonna like they wanted to tell a rock opera,
yes,
rock opera.
Mm-hmm.
In Star Wars. I think that's really cool because I think people describe Star Wars as like a space opera a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's kind of mirroring those things a little bit. And I think that's really cool. And then you gotta give props if anything that can make Boba Fett, just as badass, even when he looks like a little midget version of himself.
Yeah, he looks so tiny.
Or
like a little kid.
Or if you can make Jabba, tap his foot.
Yeah, tap his tail.
Yeah, he's like, "Ooh, this isn't fun. It isn't too bad." So I think I like that. So
this one, yeah,
go ahead.
I was gonna say just for this one, it made me laugh. I'll go with that. Like it was very goofy, but the best thing I kind of got out of this one is it very much gave that Star Wars is for everyone kind of feel, right? Because it was kind of quirky and cute and definitely more along the lines of kind of for kids, or there wasn't anything like super scary or bad happening, or wasn't really dark or sinister. This one was just very goofy and just something that I think I, 10 to 12-year-old kid would think was like funny and super cool.
Right.
And I obviously like seeing an emo Hutt with emo hair and a nose ring.
Yeah, that's true. We talked about like identifying time, like when this is set. This is set, like we said, in the original trilogy, but there's a flashback at the beginning to like just post Order 66, which is really cool.
Yeah. See, so I kind of got it was like right after Order 66 and maybe like a couple years later. Like it's just not. Oh, I guess it's Boba Fett though. So yeah.
Right. So you have to give him time to grow up. And then also he's got this like his microphone is also his lightsaber, which is like so fun. And then like it's like it's just a lightsaber, man, and it goes and it like makes the sound and everything too. I'm like, that's cool. I don't even care who you are. So the band, I'm reading from the IMDb here, the band is called Star Waver. The name is printed on the side of their starship in Arabesh. Yeah. The starship itself is called the Rolling Gales. The stage that the Star Waver is performing on at the start of this short is built into the belly of the Rolling Gale. So it's like they've got like imagine like a truck. They've got like a semi truck, and then they built a stage into it so they could just like drive up their truck into anywhere and like
Yeah.
play. But yeah,
The music gave me very much like high school talent show band. Like,
oh,
you know, when you had
100%.
bands in high school that were all the kids
Yes.
you went to high school with, and they, you know, a lot of them had bands, or this guy is like talented, and just, you
Hmm.
know, the songs that they would sing. That's kind of gave me the vibe.
I got like a Green Day vibe from it.
Yeah,
That was
maybe a little
a little
bit,
bit.
but that's what I mean, the kind of like high school, early angsty teenage punk rock where they
I
don't
would love to
really.
hear the
Yeah.
Japanese version. I did like
Actually, yes. That's
I haven't
true.
gone back and done that. That's one of the things I really should try.
I
User
bet you it's
user.
very like maybe that's rude to say. I was gonna say it's more kind of like K-pop, but probably not because that's more Korean than it is
Yeah, yeah.
Japanese. So
J-pop is what you're looking for.
yeah.
So this is a user review on IMDb. It just says nope. Really didn't like this one. Has no place in Star Wars, and the singing was atrocious. Whatever. So
I
I
mean,
disagree. I think people are gonna dislike this one. But if you're a kid, I think you might really like it. So like it's
that's
kind
what
of
I
like
mean about how it's kind
yeah,
of a bit more of an inclusive one. Like, yeah, it's for everyone. It's kind of sweet. It is what it is. So like, not everything can be super creepy, gory.
no,
You know, it's like you gotta have a mix. So
totally. Anything else you want to say about Tatooine Rhapsody before we move on to the next one?
not really.
No,
Yeah,
let's move on to the
I'm
next
good to
one.
move on to the next one.
Okay, so the next one is Twins. Now, Twins is interesting because it's very visually cool, but
Hmm.
I think one of the most like over the top, like completely ridiculous ones. And this one's done by Trigger. They actually do two. They do this one, and they do the one with the old man, the Elder, I think it's called.
Oh, did they? Okay, I like that one.
So I guess Trigger is founded by two different founders, and
Okay.
so each of the founders did their own. The younger version did Twins,
Okay.
and I've heard a bunch of different people talk about it, and like it's like, oh, it's kind of like a reimagined version of the original trilogy or the original movie with like uh, Luke and Leia,
With Luke and Leia, yeah, like if they
right?
were dark side, yeah, yeah.
Right, and I think like that's kind of cool, like a cool idea.
Yeah.
But like, there's some of the stuff here just so silly, like this these twin star destroyers that have like this big gun in the middle.
Yeah.
It's so funny looking.
The Gemini, I think it was called, or something like
Yeah,
that. Gemini
yeah,
Star Cruiser, which I was like, okay, that's kind of clever, but
Gemini class, I think. Yeah.
okay, that's what it was, yeah.
Hmm. Um,
There's a couple elements of this one that I thought were like interesting because I don't honestly I kind of spaced out a few times during this episode, both times I watched it. But I don't 100% understand what their whole armor was, and like the kyber crystal going into the armor. I'm like, that's kind of a cool idea, but I just don't really know what they were trying to do with
I
it.
don't really know either. I mean, it's like, oh, they're channeling their dark side with
Gotcha.
these
With the suits,
armor.
and then they were
Yeah.
gonna put that energy into a cannon and blow planets up, I'm assuming.
Unclear.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
but like ultimately, I just think it looks cool. Like there's a lot. Like there's this
Yes.
moment
Yeah.
where he cuts the ship in half, like on an upside down star destroyer with his
Oh, yes.
lightsaber,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
upside down X-wing, and it's like,
Yes.
and then jumps to hyperspace, and you kind of get this kind of like almost Last Jedi esque. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for here? Holdo maneuver look, where it's like just black and white and still and sort of
Yeah.
exploding. I think that looks really cool. And the fight itself is pretty cool, but like it's just nothing special. It's like to me, there's just very little character. We basically don't know any of these characters at all, and they're just thrown into a big fight, and it's like, all right, if you say so. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like,
this one I think mostly just kind of the storyline sort of just confused me a little bit. I'd say not confused me, but it just wasn't as concrete because then at one point there's all of a sudden like a flashback. I'm like, is this a flashback or is he actually talking to her? Are they outside of their bodies discussing? You know what I mean? You know what part I'm talking about?
yes, there. It's. I think it's a flashback.
So
I'm
I was,
pretty
yeah,
sure.
I was just confused. I'm like, I couldn't figure out whether that was a flashback or whether they're kind of like talking to each. I don't know. I didn't get it as much. I was like, this is a little bit confusing. But she does deflect a ship blast at some point, and I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of cool visual stuff here. It just feels
Hmm.
like very much like you could probably put no dialogue in this and just make it like just pure visual storytelling.
That's
if you
true,
really
actually.
wanted
Yeah, yeah.
to. This one also has pretty big name voice talent for the English dub. You have Neil Patrick Harris as Kare, who's
Oh, really?
yeah. is the boy.
I should have looked that up, but yeah,
And then
that's
you have
great.
Alison Brie as Am, who's the one with like Darth Vader style helmet. By the way, her
Right.
helmet's supposed to be kind of designed loosely on the kind of the concept art for Vader. So I think that's
Oh,
kind of
okay.
cool.
Yeah, this one gave me like very much Sailor Moon vibes, like the anime style
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
of
yeah,
it.
totally.
But that's the only anime real like what you would call it that I have
Well,
is
your
my
history with
history
it.
of the anime
Yeah.
is Sailor Moon and probably a little bit of Pokemon, and that's about it.
For the
So
record, I also watch Sailor Moon, so you
yeah.
can add that to my repertoire.
So yeah, I did like that they had our duo as his droid instead of
Right.
like R2. I was like, oh, that's cute. It's our
Yeah.
duo.
There's some cool, fun droid naming in
And
this whole
there
thing.
is, and he sounded obviously exactly like R2 with his little screams and
Yeah.
yeah.
I also Mark Thompson voices Stormtrooper in this short. Mark
Okay.
Thompson does a lot of the voices. He does a lot of the audiobooks.
Oh, interesting.
For Star Wars, so he'll do like an entire cast of characters with him just changing up his voice and stuff. So that's kind of fun.
Oh,
to
I
see
have
him here.
never listened to an audiobook before.
Oh, so I'll just do a brief. Here's a sidebar on Star Wars audiobooks. I love them because it's like a little mini stage play. Some of them have multiple voice casts. You'll have like 3 or 4 people doing different voices.
Oh, okay,
And
cool.
Other times you'll have just one person doing a bunch of different voices. But always you get the music is always like they always like put the right music in there.
Oh, I didn't know
There's
audiobooks
the
had
sound
music.
effects. They'll like so they kind of like
okay.
add to the experience a little bit for me. It kind of becomes this kind of like audio
Yeah.
play. More so than like just reading a book. I really like it
Because I'm such a weirdo with books. Like I very much have to read them. I didn't think I would ever enjoy an audiobook because I'm a very like when I
Sure.
read a book, I can see it happening in my brain, and I know that not everybody can do that or is like
Well,
that in
I
their
think-
brains.
I think that's the idea. Like you're reading a book, you're supposed to be able to envision it. I think that
Yes.
you get into that flow state, and then that's
No, but
the
some
kind of
people
the
can't. Some people don't have like an inward eye.
imagination.
They don't not an imagination. They don't. Their brain doesn't actually like show them real
Images.
like images.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
some people just don't. So I understand why people would like audiobooks better for that.
Well, just for different
But,
learners.
yeah.
For me, like I just fall asleep when I read books, so
Fair.
I'll
yeah.
sit
But
there and I'll fall asleep every time. So I
It-
can't do it.
would be nice to be able to technically read a book while doing something else, like at work.
Oh, that's
when
another
I'm-
thing.
You know what I
too.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
I
I can't do 2 things while reading a book.
That's
so,
true.
Yeah.
I like to put them on if I have long road trips. I'll put a Star Wars audiobook on.
Yeah. Sorry,
and that's
sidebar
always
on
fun.
audiobooks.
No, I think that's totally fair. I big fan of Star Wars audiobooks. I've listened to more Star Wars audiobooks than I've read Star Wars books.
Oh, okay.
Quite a few of them now. Okay, so let's move on. Anything else you want to say about Twins?
No, not really.
Okay, we are leaving that one then, and we'll go to the next one, which is.
That would be Village Bride. I liked this one.
I also really like the Village
Yeah.
Bride. I agree.
Yes.
I think it just looks so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Just full stop. Super cool looking. Love the mask. The rocket boot,
yes.
rocket high heel shoes
No,
are
no.
hilarious.
No, that made me mad.
What? What makes you mad
No.
about it?
The one thing that makes me the most annoyed and mad, and
This is a
granted,
cartoon.
again, I know, and I know it happens in a lot. Like it was obviously in Sailor Moon all the time, and other like cartoons and stuff. It pisses me off when they take a female character who's supposed to be kicking ass and they put her in high
But
heels.
she is kicking ass.
Just stop it. Stop putting female characters in high heels and weird outfits and crop tops and like boots. Like just let them be normal.
What if they
and
want to wear them?
fight.
What if she wants to have rocket
That's
boots?
fine. Yeah, the fact that they were rocket high heels, I was like, okay, it gets a bit of a pass. But the second I saw those, and I was like, can we not put this woman in high heels and be like, look at her do stuff in her high heels? Like, this is dumb. But fine, they were rocket boots. They had
They're
a purpose.
pretty cool.
They were
listen,
like I
I'm
would wear
just-
those, but
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So the logline for this is a Jedi on the run takes in the unique customs of a remote village under the threat by a warlord. And I just think like everything looked super cool. Like there's this kind of like old Jedi with this weird helmet,
Mhm.
and you have this like Padawan, female Padawan who's kind of like now on the run. And it seems like this is, if we're trying to nail down timelines here, this seems like it's kind of like I guess just post Order 66
That's what I kind of
time.
gathered. Yeah, because she kind of mentions in the beginning about how she has to be careful when she moves around. So
Yeah.
it makes sense. Yeah.
So, and you have this kind of like these characters who are been kind of lost. They're kind of hidden away from the galaxy, and they understand the Force, but they don't know that that's what it's called. They just have a connection to their planet and like the way that like nature and everything kind of all breathes and touches. So you have these two people, this this boy who's getting married to this girl, and he has to carry her up a mountain. It looks so hard.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was
And
so sweet.
yeah, it's very cute.
I don't know if that's like a any sort of like old Japanese
Custom.
custom or something. I'm not too sure, but I thought it was a very sweet custom about how she can't get her shoes or her feet dirty when they go to this sacred place. I was like, oh, that's very like I liked that.
Yeah, and I just generally like how slow this episode is for most of it, and it's very traditional in some ways about like this kind of like this master and apprentice type plot, but it's told in such a fascinating way, and like and again, like I said, the visual style is so cool here. I just one of my favorite like looking ones, and you have this reluctant Jedi who doesn't want to get involved, but chooses to do the right thing, and it's like it all works for me. I don't like the thing is a lot of these kind of blend together in my brain, like some of these stories, like what which story are we talking about when, and all that kind of stuff. But like I'm kind of skimming through these as we talk about them, and again, I'm just kind of coming back to this idea of just like very slow story, right? It's got some action in it at the end, obviously, when she decides to take her mask off and just like cut through droids and stuff, and it looks just badass.
Well, yeah, it does. You're right. It does take a while to kind of get to that that action, right? It's like, oh, okay, what's going on here? And then you're like, then you hear like, okay, well, she's kind of not sacrificing herself, but the big bad guys wanted to take her grandfather, but she offered herself instead as collateral kind of thing. So it's that very kind of sacrificial story of this like young girl who's doing something for her family and
and okay, I'm just looking. So they land on this kind of like Corellian. They almost land on like a Millennium Falcon style ship.
Yeah, and, I know, hey.
And they blow it up with his helmet. Turns out to be some sort of rocket. Like it's so like good. This is the coolest shit.
I know.
And all the battle droids are great too because they're all voiced by Matt Wood, who does the voice of the battle droids since the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, so good. Anytime the dumb battle droids come up, they're like, "Wow, what's that?"
Yeah, the B1 stuff. And like so obviously good. You have. I misspoke earlier when I said that he was like an older Jedi. He's not a Jedi. He's just like an old wise man.
I was going to say, I didn't think he was a Jedi. He seemed more like someone doing research on the planet, like it was something different. But I thought it was very cool when they showed that the planet had its own memories. Like they did that whole thing about how the planet used to look. And there's that old memory of her and the guy that she's marrying putting the rocks in the river.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that's very cool that the planet kind of was
the Force
showing. Yeah, was showing its Force memories. I'm like, oh, that's a really neat kind of take on the Force and like a very neat aspect of it where it's not just people who can wield it, it's planets as well being able to do things. I was like, that's very interesting.
I also love the design of her lightsaber.
Yes,
which has got this kind of like flat blade, almost like dark saber-esque look, but it's also yellow.
It's
and
yellow.
Also there's like yellow elements in the hilt too. I just think that, first of all, big sucker for yellow lightsabers. I thought it was really cool that they went that direction with Rey's final version of her lightsaber. And I don't know, I can't remember if it's this one or if it's Lopin Ocho that has homage to the Rey's theme. But anytime there's a version of Rey's theme, I'm a sucker because it's one of the best themes in Star Wars. I think it's criminally underrated.
Yeah, I did not pick that up, but
and the other thing is like some of the music in these ones really work. Like going back to the Duel, I think the music in that one's really good, and there's obviously an homage to Duel of the Fates in there. But some of these, the music is better than others. We'll just put it that way, or more memorable anyway. So the next one we have is the Ninth Jedi. This might be the best one.
Oh, okay.
It's certainly the most well liked. I would probably put it near the top, if not the top for me.
This is definitely my top 3, but it's not my favorite one out of all of them.
I just think it's one of the most fully thought out stories.
It does have the best. Yes, it has the most thought, like complex kind of story that you kind of get like a lot of story out of it. That's true.
And it seems like, so we don't know if we're getting a Visions 2. I would be shocked if we didn't. I'll just put it that way.
Okay,
I think there's no way they're like, yep, we did it once, that's it. I think we'll get Visions 2, and I bet you a lot of it will be brand new stories, but I think that you will probably see some sequels to some of the stories we've seen here.
Ooh, I would like that for a few of them.
You might see Abdul 2, and you might see a sequel to the Ninth Jedi. There's people online saying that they got really like alternate versions of the sequel trilogy vibes out of this. Like this could have been one of the stories that you could have tried to tell as a version of this out of.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Instead of what we got out of the sequel trilogy. I just think it looks really good. This is the same studio, by the way, that did Ghost in the Shell. There's just so many cool visual like things they do where the camera's flipping around and rotating a lot, and the design of just like the temple itself is really awesome.
Yeah.
Turns out it ends up looking like a lightsaber, which is I think even cooler.
Yeah.
Right. But it's turns out this short, which turns out to be I think the longest one at 22 minutes, was originally going to be one of 2 different ideas that they had. Like they're like, oh, we want to do this Jedi story where it's a trap, or I want to do this story of a Jedi blacksmith, like a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Blacksmith, right?
Which is a really neat idea.
Yes, it is. It's super cool. Because if you think about you go to Clone Wars, right, and like all the Padawans had to build their own.
Yeah, like they get their
lightsabers.
own pieces and put them together. I'm like, that's very like interesting to have like that's not really around anymore in this timeline. So
right,
yeah, like having almost like a smith, exactly. Like that's so cool.
So yeah, the logline here is the daughter of a lightsaber smith is pursued by dark forces while on a dangerous mission. So not like it doesn't tell you much in the logline, but it is like a pretty straightforward story, but it is just like really well executed, and the world building feels really seamless.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You kind of understand exactly where this is set. By the way, they've kind of said this is set post Episode 9 as well. This is like far-flung future. Not necessarily super far into the future, but definitely further along in the timeline than we've seen probably. And of course, none of this is canon, right? This is all just like fun versions of stories, so no one can get upset about that.
I was going to say, people will be way too upset if it was canon.
But there's just so many cool and I think well thought out ideas here, like this idea
of
the art of lightsaber making being a lost art, right? So in like I said in Clone Wars, you have this droid who kind of has like all the knowledge of all the different lightsabers and all the different lightsabers that every Jedi's ever had. And like guides the Padawans through building their own, right?
Right.
Obviously, the best one being the Wookiee one that's made out of wood.
yeah, so cool.
Obviously, the best one. But in this case, it's like, okay, imagine that droid died. All the Jedi who knew how to build lightsabers are dead. Now what do you do?
Right. Yeah.
So you have this. I don't know where this person learned to make lightsabers, but they don't know how to wield them because they're not a Jedi themselves. They just know how to make them.
Right.
So you have this concept of a lightsaber that taps into the force sensitivity of the user. So she picks it up, she turns it on, it's kind of like transparent. But they kind of also say, oh, you can adjust the length or whatever. He's like, no, it's not like that. It's like if you're strong in the force, it'll be the color that it should be, and it'll be the length that you need it to be, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like
I feel like that's such a cool idea.
Yeah, it's like you kind of got to get like attuned to your saber, right? Like it's. I thought that was such a neat concept for it because that's kind of always what I thought. When I was a kid and didn't know anything about lightsabers or how they worked, or I thought the colors kind of meant. I kind of thought they all meant something different. Which they kind of say that like, oh, the green ones mean offense and the blue ones mean defense or whatever it is. But I just thought this was very neat that the lightsaber kind of decides, not that it decides, but it like looks into you and it chooses its color from there. I'm like, oh, that's such a really like neat concept.
And that it can change like in the middle of a fight too, which is super cool.
So neat. Yeah.
And just so I don't know, I just love like I said, the world that they built here. And I could totally see a sequel and would love to see one. And it's so gorgeous. Like, again, the
Me
visuals
too.
of this one are so cool. I like that they do this kind of switcheroo where it's kind of like, oh, like here's the Jedi. They don't know how to make lightsabers, so we're going to call them here, and I'm going to provide them with them. But it turns out it's a trap. But the way it starts, it's with this kind of like hooded character and like dark armor with red eyes. And you're like, this guy's for sure a bad guy.
Oh yeah, like
But
you
turns out he's
think,
not.
yeah,
Which
it's
is such a
so
fun, yeah.
I loved it. Yeah, because at first you think, okay, all these Jedi are here and they're looking for lightsabers. You're like, oh, this is obviously a trap to like kill them all, and some Sith is going
Right.
to come out and yada yada. But yeah, then the way it switches, I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
Turns out they're all Sith, which is
Yeah,
like
and I was
even
like,
like what a twist I did not see coming.
no, me too. And then you have the one like poor guy in the middle that turns his lightsaber on, it's blue, and then the rest of them are.
yeah.
Yeah, he's just like kind of fumbling around. It's very sweet,
But it's just like a lot of this just so like there's so many just I think small little nods to Star Wars, like where the lightsaber smith is kind of like feels like Tatooine, right? And instead of like multiple suns, you've got these rings around the planet that you can kind of see from down below, and they're fishing for kyber crystals with these kind of like weird, I don't even know what you call it, like trebuchet type machines, right? Catapults almost
like,
that like, shoot into the
much.
sky. And like you have this super cute droid, right? Like this little like chirping little floating guy. It just one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Actually, by the way, and although the lightsaber smith himself says he isn't, quote unquote, a Jedi, when he turns one of the lightsabers on, it is blue. It's a fully blue lightsaber. So
yeah, I think he is. At least, yeah, I think he's probably a Jedi or has.
Well, he doesn't do a very good job of
sensitivity,
defending himself.
No. Well, we don't know. He might not be dead, but
That's true. That's a good point. Maybe he's not dead, but it just seems like I don't know.
probably. Yes.
So anyway, I loved this one. I think it's so fun, super cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about the Ninth Jedi?
No, I just like on my thing. I just said I would watch more of it. So it was, yeah. I think it had really good characters and character development, and yeah, storyline was really cool.
It just feels like one of the most fleshed out ones. Like
yes, yeah, it was very well done in 22 minutes. It covered a lot. So
totally, and no shade against the other shorts. I'm just some felt more like kind of like a small idea, whereas this felt like a fully fledged world that we were just seeing a glimpse of, and this and that's okay. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I preferred that kind of more fleshed out type.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, so the next one we have is TOB1 or To Be One or Toby.
I was like, Toby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Toby One. Like Obi-Wan.
I love, first of all, love the name because I think TOB1 is such a fun way of playing with the droid naming convention.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this kind of Pinocchio story. It's a droid who wants to be a Jedi. And this one I think got a little bit of hate, but I love this one. I think it's got so much style and pizzazz where
it was definitely different for sure than like the other ones. I think it had a very different feel. And I think that's probably why maybe people didn't like it as much, because again, it has a little bit more of an innocent kind of vibe to it.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cybernetic boy who dreams of being a Jedi, discovers a dangerous truth about his creator. Now, this is also, I believe, set between episodes 3 and 4, I believe. But it's not entirely clear.
I would assume so because, you know how I always watch things. The second time I watch them, I put subtitles on.
Right.
And the
Inquisitor,
thing that's they call it an Inquisitor. So I'm like, okay, so it's within the realm of the Inquisitors, which is,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a pretty specific timeline that the Inquisitors were around.
Right.
If I'm not wrong.
Yes, that's true. And also, like, what I really love is that there is like all these like carvings along the wall of his room.
Yeah.
And they tell the story of kind of like the original trilogy.
Yes, I definitely noticed the little character on the wall that looked like Grievous because it had 4 arms.
Yeah. So it's like this is, or like I guess the prequel trilogy, but it doesn't like it also looks like it shows like Hoth and stuff. So it's not really necessarily clear when exactly this is set.
Right.
But it's somewhere in that time when the Inquisitorius are still active.
Right.
So again, people are going to give this one a little bit of like a hard time. I just think, lighten up a little bit is my
Oh
general
yeah,
my
for
general
sure.
take on that. I like the I just like the vibe. I like this idea that there's this Jedi who has missing both of his arms, right? Is
Yeah.
it both or it's both of his arms, right?
I think so, yeah.
And it's voiced by Kyle Chandler, the who turns out to like, oh, is he a scientist or is he a Jedi or whatever? Turns out he is a Jedi,
Mhm.
and he has kind of put the his belief that he used to have, I guess, a Padawan named Toby. It seems like that's kind of, maybe I'm misreading it. Is that kind of, did you
I
pick
did
up on that?
not pick up on that at all, but could be. I don't yeah.
Well, there's this moment when when TOB1 finds out that his creator was also a Jedi,
Mhm.
right? And there's this where he looks like a real boy, and it's like he calls him Toby. So I don't know if maybe I'm just misinterpreting that. I don't
It
know,
could
but
be, honestly, because he did say to, like, keep you safe. He's like, "Oh, why didn't you tell me?" And he's just like, "Oh, to keep you safe."
right,
But, yeah. I like the whole idea of this Jedi that has put his being a Jedi aside and how he's going to this planet or maybe other planets and trying to create life on them and, like,
yes,
create
totally,
a sustainable planet. I was like, "That's a really neat," because that's definitely an issue in Star Wars, like, half the, like, fighting on these planets is usually about resources.
yeah,
So I think it's a very sweet thing that a Jedi would be like, okay, like try to make this galaxy a better place by going to these uninhabitable planets and try to create a habitable planet out of them.
right. I just want to know what happened to his arms. Like,
Yeah.
did he fight against Inquisitor and like he survived, but it cost him both of his arms, and like I don't just like it's just so I don't know. It's very That's a fascinating story. I also love this is another story of something being powered by a kyber crystal that's not a lightsaber, right? So turns
Yeah.
out he's
No,
being
it's
powered by a
cool.
kyber crystal, which I think is a really kind of fun idea. And by the way, we don't know if this is Tatooine, but it sure looks like Tatooine for the record.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
like just like the two suns and like the desert and everything about it just looks like Tatooine. So though it's not clear, I wouldn't be shocked if they later said, yeah, that's kind of exactly what we're going for. One bit of trivia here is that the ship that TOB1 finds in his like underneath the house is a T-16 Skyhopper. This is also the ship that can be seen in the background of the Lars family garage in the original Star Wars. The Inquisitor uses a TIE Advanced V1. This is the variant of the TIE fighter was introduced in Empire Day in 2014. So I don't know what that
Okay.
means, but
Hmm.
again, this is kind of this through line that, especially with the ships, I found most of the ships in these anthologies were very true to the like designs of the actual ships in Star Wars, right? So you have this cannon
Yeah.
ship in the T-16, and this Tie Fighter, and then later you get like these cruisers and stuff that are all very much like that. Looks exactly like what they look like in video games and everything else. So cool stuff.
Hmm.
Anything else you want to say about TOB1?
Yeah. No, not really.
Okay,
Again, not one of my
moving.
favorites, but it was cute.
Okay, moving on. Which one is next? We have the Elder. So this is the other one that was done by Trigger. I might be wrong, so if anyone gets me there, let me know. This is one of my favorites for sure.
Yes, me too.
Um,
It was
a
very, very
Jedi
good.
and his Padawan pursue a dark and powerful presence. This is very much feels like one of the rare ones that feels like it could fit right into Star Wars canon and be
Yes.
right at home.
See, you
You
know
know?
why I think so? Because
Mm.
I got right off from the beginning, I got very much kind of old school Anakin Obi-Wan vibes from
Oh,
these two.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah,
this
like
is
you
very
got the
classic stuff.
yeah, you got like the older, the master who's a little bit more like quiet and reserved and knowledgeable, and you have the young kid who just wants action and he just wants adventure and doesn't
Right.
really, he's a little bit more wayward. So I liked it. I liked their relationship.
So when do you think this one is set?
I have to think. See, this one sounded again like the Sith hadn't been around for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It was hard for me to place this one because they're in the Outer Rim and they are Jedi, and it seems, master and apprentice. So it's not necessarily. I guess, yeah, this would make more sense if it was during like prequels, I guess.
Yeah. So
Era.
according to the trivia here, this takes place before the Phantom Menace.
Okay,
So
yeah, that makes sense actually, because the like Sith haven't been around in hundreds of years or
right.
whatever. So
hmm
yeah, that makes sense.
Um, so I love that timeline. That I guess is just before, after the High Republic era, and just before the Phantom Menace, and everything that we know that takes place there. So I just think
Hmm.
it's a cool unexplored timeline. There's a couple Obi-Wan stories that take place there when he's a Padawan you can find.
Definitely, yeah.
Um, so, like I said, really love this one. Also love the voice work here. I think it's all really, really great, especially and surprisingly by David Harbour, who plays Tajin Crosser, who's the master here. Very
Okay.
much reminds you of a Qui-Gon Jinn
Yes.
type
Yes.
character,
Yeah.
right? And then you have Jordan Fisher, who plays Dan Gavashe. Love that name, by the way. Very good Star Wars name.
Yeah.
And James Hong, who plays the old man, who's he's like in his 90s, but a long time anime voice actor. And I just love everything about it is cool. Like it's very, I would say maybe a little cliche, maybe too cliche at some points. Like this is like, I feel like I've seen this story a lot of times, but I love this
Hmm.
interpretation in this visual style. And this like the way that especially that final fight ends with this kind of like almost reminds me of the Obi-Wan Maul
Maul.
final
Yes.
confrontation.
Yes. 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 For
And he kind of does
sure.
this little trick where he turns his lightsaber off and then
Yeah.
turns it on, and then it's just really cool.
It is.
um
Yeah.
yeah
And I thought this one was very true to mm, the mixing of like the Japanese anime story with a Star Wars story.
yeah
Like, like
totally.
you have this kind of like creepy villain guy who's still
hmm
pretty powerful, but he's really scary looking. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like you get a lot of those kind of characters as villains in like in anime.
right.
And they're just like very like, kind of almost like demonic looking, right?
Yes, so that's exactly what they said in the little featurette, was that they wanted to go with like a demon look
Yeah.
for this character.
Hmm.
And so there's a couple things that I think really add that make things, like, I think for me, add like some really interesting layers. So they talk about in this featurette, the behind the scenes featurette, they talk about how the director Masahiko Otsuka is quite old, and he's ready to retire. But when he was a kid, one of the first things he did was make a little like puppet show out of Star Wars action figures,
Oh,
and that was one of the
really?
first things he ever did. So he felt like, it felt very
Oh,
appropriate to him that he would end his career on a Star Wars project,
oh, I
and he
love
was very
that.
honored to be asked to do it. And so part of the story is him kind of telling this idea of him having kind of gone through the different kind of stages of being the learner and then becoming the teacher, right?
Right.
There's
Hmm.
this really great line in this episode where it's like, you will keep getting stronger, and I will keep getting weaker. That's the way of the universe, or the
Yeah,
galaxy,
yeah.
I think he says. And it's just so cool. And it's like, of course, these are all like truths and truisms and like I said, cliches. But I think it's done with compassion. It's done with kind of this care,
Yeah.
that I think really shines through. And again, I like the performances here. I think by the voice cast, I think stronger than almost any of the other performances here. And yeah, I just love it.
Yeah,
It's up there with one of my favorites for sure.
for sure. There are so many like even little things with this, like when it starts raining and then it's almost like it not I know it doesn't switch to black and white, but it seems like it does because everything
Mm-hmm.
dulls except for the colors of the sabers. And
Mm-hmm.
then you can see the mist coming off of them as the rain is hitting the lightsabers, which was
Yes.
so like different to me because I feel like you don't get to see a lot of that in Star Wars when it's
Mm-hmm.
heavy rain and how that would actually affect a lightsaber.
Well, there's that one scene with Obi-Wan and Django where he has his lightsaber out, but it's like not very. It's very short.
Yeah.
And like so anytime you get to see rain on lightsabers, it's so
Oh,
cool because it like
it is
turns
cool.
the rain into like steam,
Yeah,
and
it's oh,
you hear it go
I loved it.
sizzling. It's such a cool
Yeah.
look. I love that, by the way. That Padawan like for sure loses at first, and you're like, that guy's dead. I'm like,
Oh
that's
yeah.
what a crazy twist. Like I was like,
Yeah.
that's really ballsy of them. But then it turns out he's not dead, which I thought was a little lame. But whatever. Well,
Yeah,
just
I
because like
definitely
if you're gonna
thought
like, it's like what's this like old school Sith guy doing keeping him alive? I guess as like a
yeah, maybe to
bait.
Bait, yeah, I would assume because Sith kind of do like to do that where they will toy with a stronger Jedi in a way that they're
Sure.
trying to get them to react. They're trying to get them to
Right.
turn or, because they're just
Right.
so evil that they're like, oh, I want to do like the worst thing in front of you to try
Right.
and.
Like make you feel pain and anger and
Yes,
hate and all those things that
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I just liked the this idea that the master at one point he's like, I think his Padawan asked like, do you think if he would faced him when he was in his prime, do you think he would have beat him? And he's like, I don't
Oh,
think
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Yeah,
think I
because
would
he
have.
well,
Yeah.
because he does the lightning thing with his hand, like, he starts to get
Yeah.
really angry, and he does and I liked how it kinda shot out and then hit like a lightning strike in the
Yeah.
because a lot of times we see it hitting a person, they get, like, electrocuted, but
Yeah.
I feel like we don't actually see it act, like, as if it was an actual, like, hitting the earth the way
Yeah.
real lightning
Because he
would.
dodges it, and it's
Yeah.
like
And I was
oh,
like,
that's pretty.
"Oh," I'm like, "That's cool to actually see it hit something else in a different way." I was like, so I liked that. But yeah, he
Yeah.
was basically saying like that kind of power is insane, even
Right.
for that, old Sith to have.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I'm
if he
just
was
watching.
full
I'm watching the
strength.
moment right now in front of
Yeah.
me, and I'm just thinking like, this is one of the cool. Like, it's just so cool the
It's
way he's like dodging the
beautiful.
lightning, and then it
Hmm.
looks like he's gonna get struck down by his other lightsaber, but then the Padawan throws his lightsaber in to try to make
Yeah.
it just like inventive and interesting. And I guess they also kind of did this like interesting design for the Sith ship that they had like outsourced, and they were like really excited by who did it. I don't really understand the reference, but I also
Mhm.
like how when the Sith dies, he kind of like turns into like mush.
Yeah, he crumbles into dust like a vampire.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of like it reminds me of kind of like a Palpatine. It's like he can kind of his bodies are so old and used up. It's like if the second his essence
Yes.
is no longer in them, they would just like disintegrate.
It just disintegrates.
Basically,
And it
yeah,
it's almost how like a Jedi when they pass, they go into nothing.
yeah. They
Whereas
turn into
but a Sith just leaves this charred,
gross
gross,
pile of
yeah, like
sludge. Yeah,
pile of
yeah,
ash, I'm like,
totally.
"Oh, it's very." Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, I love this was probably my, top in the top 3.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I haven't done my rankings yet. We'll do those
Yeah.
at the end here.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else you want to say on that one?
I have nothing else in my very detailed notes.
Okay. On to the next one, which is another fan favorite. We have Lop and Ocho,
Mhm.
and I like a lot of the visual stylings here, especially some of these shots of like street level where you have the Star Destroyer kind of like looming over top.
Yeah, mhm.
I've always liked that ever since Rogue One had that Star Destroyer like sitting on top of Jeddah like that. I
Yes,
just think it's
yes.
so imposing and so visually striking. Um, and so this is Geno Studio. I'm not familiar with their work necessarily, but they use this like rabbit character who I guess there is precedence of because of an early comic book. So for those who may not know, so there is a blue space rabbit in Star Wars comics.
Is there?
Yes, and it was one of the very first comics that they did, and George Lucas hated it. Like he hated it, and ever since then, he basically said, I want to have final say over these characters. If you're
Gotcha.
gonna do
Okay.
them, I want to have a say because he hated it. But it was too late. It was done. So so there is precedent for bunny rabbit characters in Star
I
Wars.
thought she was very cute.
Yeah, she is very cute. Lop.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I see. I looked this up now. Yeah, he's kind of green, this
yeah, like
rabbit.
a bluey green. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He just
Um,
I can see why he hated him. He looks kind of stupid.
well, it just like
The
it
one
just
they
seems
did
like
in
this
this
isn't
looks
really
way cuter.
this isn't the look that wasn't the kind of style he was going for in Star Wars, right? He was like, this is just
Yeah.
so over the top and silly, you know.
No, hers is like the one that they did is very cuter in the way that her ears kind of look like hair, and
And they
it's
flop down,
yeah,
yeah.
it's a little bit more. What is it, Lola Bunny from?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess. I mean, in the in maybe the just like the smallest way. Like she's it's far off from Lola
well,
Bunny while
not
still
like
being Lola Bunny.
yeah,
She's not
no,
portrayed as sexy
yes,
in that
no,
way.
she's very cute though, and it's
Yes.
yeah.
But I like the story here. I like how they use this found family. She's adopted by this kind of this patriarch, right, in the family who feels bad about having sold out to the Empire. But his daughter, whose true daughter, is kind of disillusioned with that philosophy
Mm-hmm.
and thinks that the Empire is going to bring, strength and stability, kind of the lot, believing some of the propaganda, right?
Right.
And then this kind of traditional idea of like family heirlooms being passed down. And so it turns out the family heirloom is a lightsaber, right? Which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Then
Very
this
neat.
kind of final confrontation between Lop and her sister, where she's in this like imperial, like white garment. And you kind of like, I don't know if the sun is necessarily setting, but I'm in this kind of like, I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for here, but this kind of uh, side angle where you have like all this, you kind of see them in silhouette. That's the word I'm
Yeah.
looking for.
Silhouette. Yeah.
Silhouette.
Gotcha.
And I just think it's like this. There's a lot of traditional Star Wars ideas here. I just think it's really well executed. It's not my favorite because ultimately I feel like this turn that we get for the sister feels very, very forced. But
It's
I
very
guess that's the
abrupt. Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
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 The creator says, "Oh, I hope that it comes through that eventually Lop and Ocho will become sisters again and be friends again." That was like the tone that he was going for. I didn't really pick up on that
No,
when
I got
watching
that
it.
maybe she still had hope, but I mean this is another one where I was like, okay, like I would see again, I would like to see more of this story. Like I wouldn't be mad
Right.
if I got another chapter of this.
Yeah, and I like the design of the lightsaber here. It's kind of got these like Japanese characters on it, and
Mhm.
it kind of looks more like a traditional sword, which is really cool. But it just glows green. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good one. It's I think it's one of the ones that a lot of people like. That's not as high up on my list as maybe others. Um,
I would agree
so
with you on that. Yeah.
so okay. So here's the full line on the bunny rabbit characters. So Lop is a lepi, also known as a Lepus carnivorus, the same species as Jaxon, the character that first appeared in Marvel Comics Star Wars #8, published in
Okay.
1978. So apparently this planet that they're from is like close to Kashyyyk. So I guess that's like their excuse. That's like,
Oh,
oh well,
okay.
that explains it. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if that actually does
It's
explain
in
it,
yeah, it's
but
in this sector where there's other furry things.
yeah, right. So anyway, that's La Pinocho. Any other thoughts on that one?
Mm, yeah, no, I thought like again, I liked this one. It wasn't one of my favorites, but I didn't like obviously dislike it. I did like it, so I would see more of it. So
We
yeah,
also it's also I would also say that it's like we got this story is it's the second last one, and
yeah,
I had watched them all in the same evening, so back to back to back to back. So I was maybe getting a little burnt out. If I had maybe spaced it out or rewatched it, I might have a different opinion. I'll
yeah.
have to
That's fair.
maybe
I kind of did the same
try
thing.
to
So
maybe do that and
yeah,
go back and give it another shot.
yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the last one, which is called Akakiri, which in Japanese I understand means red haze.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so this idea, I actually really like this one. It conceptually, right? It kind of,
Yeah,
and it's interesting that they end on this one, this kind of sour note of this Jedi who
yeah.
kind of
This one
succumbs
was
to the dark side.
a bummer, but this one was one where you're like, okay, you can do a lot more. Again, you could do a lot more with it. Like it
Sure,
kind of leaves you hanging. I find.
a Jedi returns to his forbidden love to help defend her kingdom from a Sith-like shogun. And there's a couple things that I like. There's this idea that like he does ultimately fail, like his love of his life does die,
Yeah.
But then and also another this fun idea of where like how in the original trilogy or in episode 3, Palpatine promises Anakin that he'll keep
Yeah.
people from dying.
Keep
He
your
can
loved
bring
ones
his
from
mom
dying.
back to life
Mhm.
or whatever, right? Ultimately, it's like he doesn't care about any of that stuff. He just wants to
No.
control Anakin. But in this, he's like this shogun. See if I can find the name of the character here. Is does like kind of like hold up her end of the bargain and
Yeah.
says, okay, well, she is dead, but we'll bring her back. They use like force healing, and I think that's kind of cool.
It is.
Um,
Yeah.
and I also like there's some kind of like these kind of comedic relief characters in here.
Yes, those guys were very funny.
George Takei
They're
plays
very
one of them
cute.
from Star Trek, and I
Oh,
just love that.
okay.
So I like that there's a little connection there. These characters who, so I guess it's Ken Young and George Takei, who are these comedic characters. They are supposed to embody the these droids that we, R2 and C-3PO,
Yes, yeah.
but as real people, which was
Yeah.
originally what they were kind of envisioned as, instead before they became droids. So they're like, okay, well, what if they were still real people?
Yeah.
So that's
No,
kind of
they're
the idea,
very
like that.
quirky and goofy.
Oh yeah, and like have like they're still like wise, like they will have like these kind of wisecracking jokes, but they're kind of like very, they got a little bit more wisdom to them than you might expect.
Yes, yeah.
Like we're not fighters, and like they're like, we wouldn't hurt a fly, like that kind of stuff. It's very good.
Uh-huh.
So I'm reading the trivia here again from IMDb. This episode was a nod to the Hidden Fortress, which gave much inspiration to George Lucas to write Star Wars, which is
okay,
which is cool. And Hidden Fortress, by the way, is a movie from 1958 by Akira Kurosawa. So there you go, another Kurosawa film that is an inspiration here. It was another thing that I really liked. I don't know. I just like the idea that you would tell a story that has this kind of like sad ending. You just don't see that very much, I think, in Star Wars.
No, it's true. It's
except for Episode 3, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a sad thing.
Yeah.
No, I would find with this one too. I don't know. I kind of like that they ended on one that wasn't super like if they had ended on say that second episode, I've been like, okay, like that was a bit
right,
ridiculous.
You want to run down something that's got a little bit more gravitas to it.
Yeah, more like kind of seriousness, and this is kind of like to me, this story, you don't really, not that it hasn't started. It feels like it just started. It feels like we didn't actually get the full story in that episode. But
it's almost like we got a sliver of it. Like there's a whole part of like where he falls in love with this woman. We don't meet that part. And then there's a second part of this where he turns to the dark side. What does that mean?
Yeah, and it's like, does she try and get him back? Because it's like, okay, you bring this girl or this woman back to life, but then now what? Like you're on the dark side, so you still can't be with her because you're evil
super
now.
evil.
Yeah, and it's like, well, is he evil, or is like, how does this work?
I don't know, this has always been one of those things in Star Wars where like, I guess I turned the dark side now, I just have to be super evil.
Yeah,
like,
but it's like, to me, it's almost kind of like selling your soul, right? So it's as soon as you give in to the dark side, it kind of consumes you, right? So it's like that good part of you might still be there, but it's
mostly hidden away now.
It's hidden away. You've let the dark in, so
you buried it. Yeah, so I guess like that's it. So yeah, that's cool. And I think there's just like a lot of cool blended elements here. You got like this idea, this kind of this Anakin, Revenge of the Sith type stuff. You've got kind of like this Obi-Wan and Satine kind of story of forbidden love, but also like Anakin. But you can almost imagine a version where it's like Obi-Wan went back to help Satine and then decided to leave the Jedi Order, and then this version of this kind of story is similar. I can kind of see those through lines here, and I like it. Ultimately, is it one of my favorites? No, but again, we're talking about like the last one in the whole thing, and I think I might have been still a little bit burnt out. I just love the way it ends. I love that like everything turns to this like this dark red haze at the end, right? Which kind of lends to the name of the episode, of course, right? And there's this cool moment where he's like slashing through these like henchmen characters, and it's pretty cool. But again, we've kind of seen some of this stuff before, because he's the one who murders his own, like the woman still as well.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Which is another kind of classic thing we've seen in Star Wars.
Yeah, and they do it in such a like a kind of a cool way, right? Like he thinks he's fighting all these bad guys, and then she just shoves this other one at him that looks like, has a mask on and kills her.
Right.
And it's so evil.
Yeah, and obviously like her eyes glow red and stuff. It's just like a very cool look. Ultimately, like I said, this is a top-notch episode. I don't know where I'd rank it. So speaking of rankings, anything else you want to say on Akakiri before we move on here?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Okay, so let's go back and let's rank them. Why don't you go first? Tell me what your favorite episode was out of this.
My favorite is the first one. That's definitely my number one out of all of them. And then, like, I don't know if I have to give like a top three, it's probably the first one there, the duel, and then the Elder, and trying to look at my notes here.
Village Bride.
I feel like Village Bride and Ninth Jedi are kind of tied, but Village Bride I liked a little bit more than Ninth Jedi.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so for me, it's probably Ninth Jedi is my first. then the duel, then I don't know, then the Elder probably, then I'm trying to go reverse order here, then the Village Bride, then then Lop Ocho, then Akakiri, then the Tatooine Rhapsody, and then the Twins. The Twins is my least favorite one.
What about Toby or Tob?
Oh, did I put? Oh, yeah, that's somewhere in between. That's right after Akakiri. I would say Tob one is in there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think my least favorite is the Rhapsody one, honestly.
It is the most like silly one.
Yeah, and then like Tob one's probably one step up that, and then the Twins is one step up from that. But
okay.
Yeah, for like my bottom three. I guess they're all kind of in the middle. Like
they're all kind of you kind of interchangeable.
But no, I don't like. Not that I hate those ones. It's just if I'm ranking them, like those are just the ones that I enjoyed. I was the least engaged in, right? So
sure.
Not that they were bad. And again, like I think there is something for everyone in all of these.
Totally.
And it's a very, very cool thing to be like welcomed as Star Wars fans into the anime community, and to have something that anime maybe people who haven't watched a lot of Star Wars, or who anime fans who do watch tons of Star Wars and tons of anime now have something of like two things that they really love. So I just think it's a really cool thing to do.
That's a great point. That's an absolutely great point, because there's probably a lot of Star Wars fans who don't ever watch anime, and this is like a great gateway for them.
Yeah.
Right? Or anime fans who just who aren't maybe into Star Wars as much, and this is kind of a cool gateway to Star Wars for them. So it can work in either way. And you mentioned like there's something for everyone here. I remember I was listening to a podcast and they were saying basically there's it's a double-edged sword in that way, because there's something for everyone, which probably means there's some stuff that you're not going to like.
Yeah,
right?
for
sure. But that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to like
yeah.
everything. Yeah, it's not. A variety of styles is ultimately good here, especially in an anthology like this. If they're all kind of the samey, you would, and there is some sameness across some of them. But ultimately, I think they're all distinct enough in their own right that that makes them kind of stand out from one another.
Definitely.
Okay. Any final thoughts on Star Wars Visions?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be upset to see more of a lot of these stories. Some of them I don't think need more. Some of them I think do. So
right. So
yeah,
I think we can list them. I think the duel. The Duel, I would like to see a sequel to. The Ninth Jedi, I would like to see a sequel to.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a sequel to Lop Ocho and Akakiri. I don't know if I necessarily need a sequel to The Elder. I think that kind of one stands on its own. It doesn't necessarily need a sequel.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say
no.
That is the one. I feel like that one, it feels the most normal Star Wars to me out of all of them. So
which is like why I don't need it. It's like I can go get that anywhere.
So those characters feel like they could easily fit in anywhere, right? So I would totally agree with what you're saying on which ones you would see more from, for sure.
And the Village Bride too, I could see it there being a sequel
that character I would actually, because her lightsabers got that
super
yellow
cool
tinge too.
Yeah.
It to
and
me
the
that's
rocket
always
boots.
The rocket boots. But to me that's always more of like a mid ground. I always associate the yellow lightsabers with a little bit more of being like a gray Jedi, or someone who's not necessarily light side or dark side. They don't necessarily have any what's the word I'm looking for?
Allegiance.
Yeah. Like, not that they don't have allegiance, like there's obviously right and wrong, but they're kind of
she's not a Jedi and she's not a Sith. She's just someone who has a lightsaber and can use the Force.
And like a little bit more kind of like Ahsoka later on, when she's Fulcrum and she's doing things that she just thinks are good.
But she's got the
helpful.
white lightsabers in that case. But like, I agree. Like you think of Jedi, you think of blue and green, right?
Yeah.
Maybe purple. And you think of Sith, you think of red, right? And then anything that doesn't fit into those boxes is something that's a little bit different, a little bit less rigid. Obviously, I think if you are a sequel trilogy fan, I think people would be upset if you thought they were like, yellow isn't a Jedi color. I think people think that Rey's a Jedi and she has a yellow lightsaber, so it is what it is. But I really like yellow lightsabers. I think they're really cool looking.
Yeah.
Okay, well, in that case, I think we can wrap it up. We will, I guess, I don't know. I'm thinking when's the next time we'll be back on here.
See you in December.
It might be December. I mean, I'm thinking it's probably not. We're probably not going to sit down and do an episode on like I said, I was telling you before we started recording this, like the sounds of the galaxy of sounds, Star Wars, which is just like a bunch of clips of different sounds from Star Wars. So I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to dive into that.
No.
But there, I'm sure will be other things. I think there is a Halloween special. There's a Lego Halloween special, Lego Star Wars Halloween special.
Cute.
Coming out at the end of October. Yeah. So maybe we do a little one on that. Maybe not. We'll see how that goes. And then, of course, we have Book of Boba Fett in December, right around Christmas, which is a nice, fun surprise. So,
I'm so excited
for sure, we'll be back for that one. And just keep an eye on the Twitter at Tower Babblecast to kind of get a sense of when we're going to be doing stuff and not. And, of course, listen to the full show, Tower Babble Podcast, where we can talk about all things, not just Star Wars. So we will be back soon with more Star Wars, and we'll talk to you then.